Hi, it's Chip. And let's look at what objectives mean. But before we start with that, I'd like to point out that we have been working on a repository that you can find. Example, there we go. I'll make sure that this repository is in the description, and by looking through the history you can see all the changes that we're making. That would allow you to roughly see what happens when, and to literally inspect the changes that happen during a session but also between sessions. For example, one of the things that I've done in advance is add in a Cybran base so that we don't have to place that during the video by hand, because that took quite a bit of time last time and that feels a bit like a waste. So by all means, take a look at this GitHub repository if you are stuck at any moment. Speaking of the map, let's actually load that in. And there we are. And it's still very much the same map as previously, except for the fact that we now have a Cybran base here to our right that's going to try and make our life difficult. We have a very basic interceptor behavior that we will discuss in the first section. But before we do all of that, let's just look at breathing some life into this Cybran base so that it starts doing, at least starts building units, and that the base exists when we launch the map. Speaking of launching the map, let's do that right away. And then once we have the base, we can start adding in objectives to either tell the player to destroy the base or to help the player gather resources or other objectives where the real limitation is just your imagination. So while we're at that, let's just get started. We're gonna launch in the map. Computer is by all means getting slightly more laggy. All right, so here we are. Our UEF ally is brown for some reason, but as you can see, there's no Cybran base right now. So let's first try and fix that. And we're gonna fix that by redoing some of our steps that we did in the previous video, and that is just setting up the base with the markers and the radius, and then initializing the base. So what we needed to create such a base is to have these groups that end with _D3, _D2, or _D1, which stands for the difficulty. So if we're just playing on easy, then the base is going to be smaller than if we're playing on medium, than if we're playing on hard. Now in this case, the hard difficulty doesn't have additional units, but the medium one does, with one of these units being the stealth field that we have right here. So that's the unit groups that we needed. Next to that, we needed some markers. We have a marker that indicates the center of the base. So let's put that down here somewhere. Re-click it, select it, and then give that the same name as the base. And the base was called M1 East Base. So let's do that. M1 Cybran East Base. There we go. So let's look at what we have here. We've got this start mission 1, but now we also want a separate function named function start mission 1 start M1 Cybran, just to keep the code nicely separated. At some point we'll separate all of these M1 mission related functions into its own separate file, but we're not there yet. And we're just gonna copy some of the work that we've done before. We don't have to set the playable area because that was already done. We like to set this initialize difficulty tables for that ally south base. And we're just gonna make our own instance here. Cybran M1 Cybran East base. There we go. And we're just going to copy all of this over and then use the proper variables and names. So here we have, this is now a Cybran army, not a UEF enemy. Apparently this is already used, yeah. So this is now a Cybran. What? Cybran, there we go. And we've got our base. This is the marker, right? If you look at it again, we've got these annotations set up with the IntelliSense. And we can see that we've got self, which is included because of the columns. Then we have the base manager. Wait, that's ourself. Then we've got the brain. We got the wrong brain right now, so let's set that to the Cybran army. Then we've got a base name, which is the name of the unit group. So in our case, that is M1_East_base. East base. Then we've got the marker. Let's add _marker to that, and let's remove the Cybran so that we have consistent naming. There we go. This is the east based marker. And then we have this radius, where the radius tells the base manager what units are supposed to be part of this base. This is primarily relevant if you have multiple bases. So say we have a base right there and we have a base right here. But for now, a value of 80 is probably going to suffice to capture this entire base. And then we have this little value here that should match the name of the group, because this sets the priority for that group. Now, we wanted to start with a non-zero base because we kind of want this entire thing to exist already. And we turned these around last time because this was supposed to be our ally. Right here, we want the ally to have more engineers, because that's what these numbers mean. When we're on easy, but we wanted to have less engineers when we're hard. And here we kind of want to do the reverse. If we're playing on easy, we want the enemy to have less engineers, and if we're playing on hard, then we wanted to have more engineers. And we wanted to give it some basic behaviors. Now these behaviors were defined by these activation functions right here. Note that you can do Control-click to go to the definition if you've got the extension set up. And what would we like to do here? We've got the air scouting active. Maybe we'd like this guy to reclaim a bit too. There we go. Reclaim. True. I don't know what the behavior is going to be exactly. But we'll find out. Now we're gonna make sure that we call this function. There we go. And let's give it a spin, see what happens. Now, and at this point, the base is just gonna build a few scouts. And I'm not really sure what the reclaim behavior is, but it's gonna make some engineers to send out to reclaim. And then we would need to add all these operation AIs so that they would actually start building other things and then give those platoons some kind of an AI. But apparently we did something wrong. Invalid marker name because we didn't save. So let's try this again. Also, I'm not a huge fan of our UEF color here. It should be bluish. But we can set that. We'll see in the second section that there's a lot of functions and everything already done for us that can help us with that. Alright, and this time we did it correct, so let's look at it. And there we have our blue Cybran base. Perfect. Exactly what we wanted. We got some reclaim here, so that's nice. And some flying debris, that's a bit odd. It's not doing anything yet. It should be at least building some engineers, just like this one is. So let's look at what we did wrong. Maybe we shouldn't set this one on. This marker exists. We have the base. Let's just try this again. I don't think it can pick up the factories at the moment. We have the right base, the right army. The base spawns, so that's great. The marker is found, so that's great. Alright, let's give it another go. Sally shares. Okay, so they're not building anything. We are creating the base manager just like we did last time. We've got the correct army set up. That's army 3, which is this one right here. And the markers found. 357, 345. We have, we know we don't need that. I would expect it to at least build scouts and the engineers. Just like our own little base is doing right here. Do you happen to see what we're doing wrong, Rowie?
No.
Let's look at it. We got a commander. I took out the scout. That's nice.
Does it need a restart?
No, I already did. We're calling it. We got the right brain, the right units, the right marker, maybe. Let's just try again. This is that marker, right? Yeah. I think 80 is already like all the way over here, but who knows? No, it doesn't appear to be doing a whole lot, and apparently it spawns with frigates that then get destroyed. That's an interesting one too, but we'll fix that later. Let's just first look at what we're doing wrong.
The reclaim.
Say again?
That's probably the map reclaim.
No,
It spawns
no.
at the game start.
No, I'm pretty sure I added that in myself. Create base manager. This should not be here. That's not really relevant. We're hostile to them. What if we just add another behavior? See if it picks up on that. But I have the child quantity here too. It's not picking up on it. Oh, wait, we have an error now. Duplicated, okay. Gotcha, this name needs to be unique. Am I still recording? Yes, I am. Let's see what we have. That's odd. I don't get why it's not doing anything. We're doing exactly the same thing. Oh wait, maybe we need to add that in, but this is the M1 Cybran East base. This code is run, so that's not the problem either. It should just be starting to build the engineers. Did I make a typo? No. I don't understand why it's not doing anything. So let's take a step back. What if we don't initialize this guy? And we don't initialize this one here too? What if we just do this base? That's odd. Let's see if speed 2 happens to be online. Alright, anyway, we don't need to basically actually do anything to set up the objectives. So let's just start looking at that. And then see if speed 2 has some time for us to help us figure out what's going wrong here. So, objectives are... you can find all the objectives in the sim objectives.lua file.
High speed.
Hello.
Oh, hello. So, we got this interesting issue. I made this Cybran base, but the Cybran base is not building anything. And I don't entirely understand why.
Have you set the faction in the save file? Or in the map editor, if that map editor supports that? If you find the army, there is a faction, and if it's 0, that's UEF.
Seriously? This is it?
Yeah.
So this needs to be 1, I think?
Well, Cybran, well, I'm not sure. Well, let me check. I have a Cybran army here.
We'll just...
2. Cybran
let's
is
see
2.
Quickly save.
Yeah, so Aeon is 1 and Seraphim is 3.
Alright, let's see if that helps. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's... that wasn't expected. This seems a bit obsolete. Why is this required exactly?
Well,
To determine...
I would yeah, I know what faction it is.
Alright. Well, that's good to know.
You need to let it know somehow. And like, well, the player knows since you select that in lobby, right? But the AI,
Doesn't
it's
know.
completely scripted, so you need to set it somewhere. And this is the only way for now, I guess.
Okay, I guess so. That's good to know. Because then if we end up making the Seraphim faction, which is going to be somewhere in the last expansion, then we're going to need to set this to 3 then, which is Seraphim. and Aeon is going to be 1.
Indeed.
So then last time we kind of got lucky because I don't recall changing this faction here.
Yeah, well, 0 is default, and that's UEF.
Okay, well, you know, I would have never figured this out, so I'm happy that I asked. So yeah, so now we got the base going, and we don't really, we're not going to look into adding all the other operation managers. We're just going to look at how can we add in the objectives so that we can tell the player to instruct to kill the base. So let's look at that real quick. We have our start M1 Cybran. So we have the base. And now we'd like to use some objectives. Now all the difficult work is already done for us. Every objective that's being used in the campaign is essentially just calling one of these functions that represents the objective. And now all of these functions have these annotations. So that helps us a lot in determining how to call the function with the correct parameters. So in this case, we will likely just want to kill at least the factories and the resource Tech 2 resource structures of the base to make sure that there's nothing of valuable there anymore that can produce units. In order to do that, we can just do a kill objective. And here we can see the annotation right in action, because the first parameter is this type, which has only 3 possible options: primary, secondary, and bonus. In this case, it's going to be a primary mission. And here again, this complete flag can only be either complete or incomplete. Usually the mission is incomplete, but it could be that the player already did something and then the objective is considered to be completed before it even started. And then we're going to need a title. Eliminate the Cybran base. And then we're going to need a description. Now, just to make this slightly easier, let's just encapsulate these in separate strings. And there we go. The base, Cybran base, is raining havoc on our UEF ally. Neutralize the base so that to continue the mission. Alright, and then we're going to need this target argument, and that target argument is a little bit special because that kind of tells, that's kind of like the platoon data that we saw earlier, right? This type of data that gives all the data to actually run the objective. So in this case, let's just make a separate table. And we can see what that requires by just hovering over the function. So we've got this objective data, a table of units to kill, all right? Whether or not we want to mark these units, this is defaults to true. In the future, we'll add that to the description. And whether or not the objective is hidden, and whether or not we want to flash the units so that they're on your intel. And if we want to show some progression. Now we're just going to start simple by just selecting the units. And we can select the units by getting the army brain. And then we can get a list. What does this return? Ah, it doesn't know. Okay, so let's just start with doing that. And then we can set a type. AI brain, there we go. And we should probably fix this, that it should return it though, an AR brain. But the first index is unknown. Anyway, now we have a brain. Then we can do get lists of units. And by doing so, we can get all the units of the brain. We also have another function, which is get units around point, which if you would have multiple bases, you can use to get units around this little marker that we have right here. So let's start doing that. So we want to call this get units around points. We need some categories. Well, we said that we wanted to take out the factories and the Tech 2 production. So categories.factory plus categories dot Tech 2 times, let's see if we go to a power generator. Is the game sound very loud? Let's put that down a bit.
It's energy production.
Times energy production. And here we need to use categories dot. And we kind of want to use this fella right there. And then include the categories dot mass production. There you go. Then we need to give it a position. This is where we're going to start using the scenario framework and the scenario utilities. Because in scenario utilities, there's a function called get marker to position. There we go. Which requires the string of the marker, which happens to be this little marker right here of our base. So there we have it. And a radius. Well, let's just give it a radius of 80. And alliance, we only want hostile structures. Actually, in this case, because we are retrieving from the Cybran brain, we want allied. But I'm not really sure what that last argument is. So let's do a quick search. Oops, there we go. What the arguments really are. Ally, ally, enemy, 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 ally. Alright, so ally is a good guess. Alright, so that gives us the units that we want to take out. So here we can now see, if we hover over this again, units, table of units to kill. So we can say units is units. And we want the units to be marked, but that defaults to true, so we can just leave that out. And let's just flash them real quick. Flash visible. Alright. And this gives us the first objective. Let's look at what happens. Should fix this annotation right here. All right. So here we have it. We can see the objective here. Eliminate the Cybran base to the east. A Cybran base to the east is wreaking havoc on our UF ally. There's progression going on. We again see that there's 0 out of 10. So now if we would miraculously destroy this factory and then switch back, you can now see that's 1 out of 10. That's the progression that we're seeing. So if we hover over this and we would put show progress is false, then we will see that that little number there is gone. And we can see that they've been made visible to us. They're in our intel right now. And that's what the flash visible did. And that's the first objective. But the real question is what can we do with that objective? So let's just say M1 East Base. And what we can do is add a result callback. There we go. And what this is going to happen is the moment when we when the objective is complete, and this callback is going to be called. So if we succeeded, does this ever get triggered?
Only manually.
Yeah. That's I was going to go to that point. Yeah, so let's see what happens.
And it's just for this type of objective.
Other objectives like protect with a timer, etc., they can end on their own again. Now the nice part about all of this is that we don't have to do the UI, we don't have to do all of the difficult work. We just have to tell the game the units and then go and destroy them. So let's do that real quick. Oh, the progression still shows. I thought this would disable that.
It might be hard-coded for the kill objective. Like, the code for the objective is kinda all over the place, but
Fair enough.
for other, you have to show it. But for a kill, it's probably just hard-coded to always show it, since it's to kill very specific units.
Alright, and now you can see that the objective succeeded, the objective is gone, and we got this message, it all worked out. And then in this if statements here, using these if statements, we can continue the logic of the campaign mission. That is sort of the same pattern that we're seeing in the other campaign missions. Take, for example, the Aeon campaign, the second mission of the Aeon campaign, where they create a bunch of army units, and then they add some restrictions, which is what we're going to be doing too. And here we have mission 1, where they create this objective, kill or capture in this case, and add a result callback. If it's successful, then we move the camera around a bit, and here we have another capture objective, an army stat compare. We're going to look into that in a bit. Just trying to find out which one is causing the...
First one, I believe.
This one right here?
Yeah, it's the first line is the dialogue, which triggers intro mission 2 when the dialogue finishes.
There we go. You're right. And then the second part of the mission starts, and that's what we can do too, right? Given that the objective finishes, and maybe there's another Cybran base here that we want to take out, we can group those objectives together, and if they're both done, then the mission starts expanding. You could also do it non-linearly. You could say, well, maybe if this base is destroyed, we expand to our right, but the base is there. You know, this base here is still there. And once we destroy this base, then we also expand to the top. But that's all kind of the Lua logic that you can add yourself to these objectives. Now, for now, I'm not going to go too much into depth into the actual result callbacks. We'll do that next week, when I've planned out what the mission is going to be like, so that we can constructively work towards that goal. For now, I just want to discuss another objective that may be a bit more difficult to grasp, but it can be very powerful in terms of allowing you to tell your player what he should be doing. And in this case, I want to do an objective which is called army stat compare. And the idea of army stat compare is that we can compare statistics of the army. Let me see if I did this right. Yeah, army statistic. Which I can't type for some reason. Army statistic. Oh, I thought that was going to work. Anyway, but what we kind of want to do is using the army statistics. Let's just go there real quick. Here at the top, it says the possible army statistics. We kind of want to make sure that our player is building sufficient factories. Right, because this is going to be sort of an introductory mission, and we want to make sure that the number of units that are active for example, the factory count is sufficient. So let's do that. We got this army stat objective We are going to give it a name, M1 player factory objective. All right. And then here we can see Teleson is working again. This is a primary mission. And we are incomplete initially. And we have a title again, so let's copy that in. There we go. Build sufficient factories. Lorem ipsum da di da di da. There we go. So let's add in that title. Title, description. And then here the difficult part starts again where we have this table. If I'm correct. Oh, we got this action image here too. So let's add that one in. Local action. And we're going to look into what that exactly means. But for now we're just going to add it in. And in this army stat compare, we have, if I'm not mistaken, but let's just, is this mission? Yeah, there we go. We want to populate our, actually this is kind of exactly what we want to do. Build auroras. We want to build 200. That's a lot of auroras. But we're going to use the same action image. And this action image, if we look at objectives, then we have a function called getActionIcon. Somewhere defined here at the bottom. There we go. And these are the different actions that we can use. And this determines the overlay. So in our case, if we restart the mission real quick, which is gonna cause an error, but that's fine. And then we had the power generator unit in the background, and we had this red overlay, which is the kill overlay, the attack button overlay, in the foreground. All right, there you can see it. So now that's this red little line around it.
Yes, just some quick intel into how this works. So by default, the kill objective is gonna use that classic red marker for attack.
Yeah.
But once you get intel on the unit, it's gonna switch it to the unit icon.
Oh, okay,
So if you didn't have the flash visible, it would stay as the red marker. And when you scout one of the units, I guess the first one, and it's gonna take an image of that unit.
All right, let's look at that.
Yeah, and there should be also way in your build objective to specify maybe even a factory icon to use.
All right, you're right. So this is right now the attack. And if we would make a spy plane and fly over that, yeah, there we have it. It always has the same icon though, even though we scouted the factories first.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's not the best code, but does the job.
Yeah, that's all fine. That's all good. So let's add in some. Yeah. So you're saying that we should have a unit identifier here? Like, what would the?
That depends. Let's see. No, this is correct. It needs to be built for now because it's grabbing exactly from the list that you just showed. So it probably needs to be one of the valid ones.
You mean?
But you can yeah. It's using this. So if you would write anything else, it would not work or just show nothing. But then in the target, I believe you can specify unit, but I don't remember exactly how.
All right, let's see how this works. So we want all the human players. to build something, we don't want units history, we want units active, I think. But this is saying build Auroras 2, so maybe units history is fine. And we want it to be more than, say, 3 for now.
Units active is that the unit needs to be alive at the same time, and history is just overall count, even the
okay.
units that died.
I see. And then here we can give it a building, which is this land factory right there, which is the wrong one, because we are UEF. So we want the E and B. Hold on, this is the wrong file. There we go. And hidden, no, we don't want this objective to be hidden, because it's not a bonus objective, this is our primary objective. And I think this should do it. Just to give us that initial objective. Army to compare with, stat name. Now these stat names can be found here at the top. The majority of them are self-explanatory. I'll try and see if I can make sure that if you do an annotation that it shows as the possible options, just like primary did in this case. Okay, so we did something wrong. Attempt to call local action a string value. Army stat compare. We've got the type, to complete the title description, the action, and then a target, but it's trying to call this because we forgot a comma. All right, let's see. It's already picking up the icon. Maybe
I
because
think
of
this is one of the objective that uses the category.
Yeah.
To do that.
So now we just need to build 3 factories. And by all means, let's not.
Yeah, probably if you had the category more generic, like let's say factory UEF, then it wouldn't do that, and it would show the build icon. But since you specified
a very specific
unit blueprint.
All right, but now you can see that we completed the objective by building these 3 factories. And just to showcase, I think if we do show progress is true here. And then try again, then I think those numbers that tell you how many you need are gonna pop up. There you can see, now it says 0 out of 3. So that's give or take everything there is about the objectives. You look through the objectives, what type of objective you want, you need, and then you just like we did with the platoon, right? This little table here, you just start populating what the objective asks you to do. Set the type, to complete the title description, possibly an action, and then all the objective specific data that we'll need. Now, not all objectives are as simple. For example, all the kill, protect, guard, reclaim objectives are pretty intuitive. This army stat compare objectives is not. And you also have a unit stat compare, which is also not intuitive. But this should definitely get you going in terms of the objectives. And then once you have your objectives, you can add your result callbacks, where you can, if the objective succeeds, then you do X, and if it fails, then we failed the mission, or etc. And this is, by all means, use the missions where the objectives are already used as inspiration to making your own objectives, especially in terms of the callbacks. For example, we haven't really spoken about dialogues yet, but as Speed pointed out, if you do have a dialogue, then you can use that to nicely start the second mission right after the dialogue ends. And these are kind of little tricks that you only really get to know about because you're looking through the source code of other missions. Now again, not every mission is as well written, so I would really recommend you to start just by looking through the AN campaign missions, the first few of the AN campaign, and then just try and expand your way outwards from that. With that said, that's it about objectives for this specific video. In the future we'll pick this up again when we have a clear path of how we want this first expansion to happen, and when we have that, we will spend a few sections of one of the programming sessions to really think through the objectives and think through the logic, and I'll tell you how you can think about using state machines or just diagrams in general to help you organize how everything is starting to look like. Anyway, let's start looking at the next section, which is about the scenario framework and the scenario utilities, which contains a lot of logic and functions for us that we can use to really boost our workflow in terms of all the code that's already written in there that we don't need to write ourselves anymore.